What is up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of Grant Teach Me Something. We're going to be talking about Subject 2 today and really breaking it down so where even if you haven't heard of it, you've kind of heard of it, you just want to know what's going on, that you'll have the opportunity to go from not understanding fully insides and outs to getting how to do this transaction, at least being able to recognize when a situation fits. Because guys, as we go into this market shift and as things are going to be changing and correcting, Subject 2 is going to be the savior of your portfolio. So stick around right after the break and we are going to break it all down for you the best way possible.
Teach me something.
Hola, Ryan.
Hey, what's up, Grant?
How you doing, man?
Tired, but I'm good.
Tired,
I'm
I
here.
feel you. I'm tired too.
You know, it's funny because we've done these shows so many times and we talk, I mean, let's be honest, the Grant Teach Me Somethings are majority talk about owner finance,
Yeah.
Sub2.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest things that we've been talking about the past week is out of everything we've done at Propelio TV the past year and a half, what we search for the most, or what we get searched on the most, or what we get hit on.
Right, yeah, like what the biggest search
Analytics
volume, I don't know.
is the Subject 2.
Right.
So we were talking like, let's do another breakdown video and just really dig into all things Sub2.
And I'll say too, like I've seen a large increase of people just asking questions, just trying to figure out how this stuff goes, and we gain new audience every day. So I think it's a good time to go back through and let's take this from like the 1, 2, 3s, right? Let's kind of give an overview.
But what's a one?
But it's less than 2. So Subject 2 is going to be that, like I said, that savior in the crash. That savior, and now I'm going to steal from Mitch Stephen, who's just a brilliant individual if you guys don't know him. He does a lot of owner financing down out of San Antonio, and his quote that I'm stealing from him is, we're not saying that owner financing is the recession-proof strategy, but if there was a recession-proof strategy, it would be owner financing. And Subject 2 is one facet of owner financing, okay? Owner financing at its core just means, hey, you want to buy a house, instead of you going and getting a mortgage, how about you just give me a down payment, I'll give you the house, and you owe me the mortgage instead of Bank of America.
In this show, I think we're going to try to be as super basics and as super down, authentic, whatever, super something. And so we're going to I'm going to ask questions that I've probably asked before, but I just, because take owner financing. What's the difference between owner financing and seller financing? Well, it's your perspective, right?
Yeah, there's really not a difference. Owner financing and seller financing are going to be synonymous. You can interchange both of them, so you hear people say one of the other. Don't have to feel stupid. This is going to be our, like, some forums do like a stupid question.
It's like, don't feel stupid in this episode.
Yeah, right? Like, ask whatever.
Yeah.
Nothing's out of bounds whenever we're going to go over this, because we want to give everybody that opportunity, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever you're at, make that comment. We'll follow it, and if it's on the replay, we'll even answer it in the comments.
Yeah, and I want to address that because, like, I know you get hit up all the time for questions outside of your mentorship program. I know we get hit up other questions, and in some ways, like, I want to answer, but I'm always like, I just want to be like, what's the nicest way possible to say, honestly, if you just answer it or ask it in a YouTube comment section or a Facebook comment section, we'll answer it for free.
Right?
And we'll answer
You're giving
it
away the secrets
for everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
and that
the
way
thing
everybody
is,
can see it.
So use this as your opportunity for your personal mentorship with, I would say Grant and Ryan, but let's be honest, it's just Grant.
No, this is a good time. This is a good time. So
And if you want to troll me, I'm right here.
if you need some practice. So, to jump in, right, with owner financing, with wholesaling, with Subject 2, again, this is a strategy. Subject 2 is a strategy within owner financing. It is one way to do owner financing, and what Subject 2 means is that you're going to buy somebody's house subject to the underlying mortgage staying in place as is. In other words, it's kind of like saying you're going to take over on their payments, right? Now, I'm going to say, taking over on payments right here as we're talking, because it's just us gals, right? But we are not going to say taking over on payments to our seller, right? And why not? Why would we not say that we're taking over on payments to the person selling?
Because I think on the taking over payments, and it is semantics, but at the same time is you never want to give you always want to be above board, you always want to be ethical. But when I hear or when somebody hears taking over payments, they're taking over my loan.
Right.
And that's what you don't want. You don't want that to come across, right?
Right, because we want them to understand that when we're buying their house subject to their underlying mortgage staying in place, when we're buying their house sub-2, that mortgage is staying in their name. That's one of the beautiful parts about what it does for us and for our portfolio is that we're able to buy unlimited houses every month subject to, because we don't have to go to a banker and get approved and go through all of that.
But Grant, why would anybody ever do that?
I know, right? Yeah. Well, we'll get into that. That is definitely a great part of subject to, because we'll address just the short answer is they do it all the time, especially in that downturn. And as we talk more about the crash and as we talk more about when this scenario is going to arise, you'll start to understand, oh, this is a valid thing that people really need to help, as a seller, needs to help them out of this, right?
Right.
So, but back to the whole taking over on payments thing, we need to make sure that they understand that when we're buying this subject to, their name remains on that mortgage, which means it's going to show up on their credit report.
So before we go too far, and because I know at the beginning of any show, you got to have a little fluff because we're like, hey, get to know you. Let's really give the simplest answer humanly possible. I'll give my simplified answer and you can add to it.
All right.
Of what sub-2 or subject to real estate investing is. It's simply put, you are making payments on behalf of somebody else, and I'm screwing up by trying to simplify it. They got a house, you want the house, you want to sell the house. The loan stays in place, but you make payments instead of them.
Right.
And then you sell it to somebody else.
Yeah, totally. Subject to is an acquisition model. Okay, owner financing has many different aspects of it. Subject to is a way to buy houses. You're not going to sell your house subject to. When you buy the house subject to, you become the owner of the property, but you just continue to make payments to Bank of America or Wells Fargo, whoever that bank is, on the behalf of the seller. So rather than us saying we're going to take over on your payments, we're going to say we will continue to make your payments on your behalf. Right. Now, again, just with us gals, I'm going to say taking over payments because it's a lot quicker than saying taking over payments on their behalf.
And I think I simplified it in my head.
Okay.
Let's try this again.
Let's try it. Take two.
Take two. So you got a house, or they got a house, and they move out, you move in, their loan stays in place, but you own the house.
Right.
But you're making payments.
Yep.
Is that way simplified?
It is, yeah.
And however you want to have a disposition strategy for that does not matter, but we're just talking about the acquisition side.
Exactly, because to that point, you can buy houses sub-2 and rent them out. You can buy houses sub-2 and flip them on the retail market. You can buy houses sub-2 and do a wraparound mortgage on the back end. You can do anything you want. It's an acquisition.
Because there's no rule of thumb that says you can't sub-2 a property for 3 months and then flip it.
Right. Totally.
Like the last sub-2s that I've been a part of were both flips. Like I'm in a sub-2 right now specifically to flip.
Absolutely. And I do that commonly in areas that I know the typical person in this neighborhood is not going to have my 10% down payment that I'd like to own or finance it out. But we can get into the disposition side on another time, and we do in previous videos. So I do encourage you to go back through the history here, as we are going to be doing an overview on this. Go back through the history, Grant, teach me something, because we've got all kinds of detailed, actionable information for you to help your portfolio grow.
But I just wanted to really take away the mystique of it, because a lot of people are so scared of it. They're so nervous about it. And that's why I was really wanting to try to get a simplified answer, because again, it's like at its core, it is so simple. But then again, all of real estate is simple. It just takes work.
Yeah, there's truth to that.
That's why I just really wanted to strike that home of sub-2 is not that scary. It's fairly simple. So just do it. Not anyway.
But a big part of it is getting good paperwork, right? It's getting good contracts and being, somebody who discloses everything, because that's really the key here. Is that we need our seller in this situation to understand that their house is going to remain that their mortgage is going to remain in their name, and they need to be prepared for that mortgage to stay in their name for the remainder of that mortgage. That's one of the things that we want to be very clear about. Is that, let's say that Ryan, you bought a house 2 or 3 years ago, things just aren't going well for you right now, and you're going to have to get rid of it. And for whatever reason, you don't have the equity to sell it to a wholesaler or whatever that might be. Well, that would be one way for us to buy that house, subject to, because we don't need a big discount that that a wholesaler needs.
Because at that point in time, my options take out the mentality of being an investor and knowing that there are different strategies, but stereotypically or what's out there in the norm is I can list it and a realtor is going to list it and it's going to sit on the market for months on months on months because I have to put a price on it that I can pay off my mortgage, or B, I go into foreclosure and lose everything and now my credit's tarnished forever.
Right.
That's the only two things I'm thinking about because I'm not an investor. I don't know to search on YouTube subject to investing or real estate investing and find Subtle Plug Propelio TV, those different strategies. So in my world, the only thing I have is list it and hope it sells, or maybe I'll win the lottery.
Right.
Or get foreclosed on.
And let's talk about this for a second too, with the fact that, so right now we're talking low equity because this is one of the big benefits to what Subject 2 allows us to buy, right? And just to be ultra clear on that, Subject 2 means that we don't need the discounts in the properties. Therefore, we are able to buy houses that other people can't buy, like he just mentioned, right? So why would somebody get into that scenario? Now, I know a lot of people have been getting into this business over this last 4 or 5 years, and we've just had this incredible growth nationwide of things going up and up and up and up. But let's kind of graph that out a little bit. Let's look at what this looks like whenever we've got a market like this. So what we've seen property values rise, level out, rise, level out, rise, right? But as we all know, the next part of this, and it has to happen, I'm not a sky is falling kind of guy, but it has to happen, there will be a correction, okay? And that correction might dip like this, and then it's, going to go up, or, however long those cycles take. Well, for the past several years, somebody has been able to buy a house right here, right? Get into a crappy situation a year later, and now they've all of a sudden got a ton more equity where they're able to sell, right? So what happens is more and more people buy, Well, what's eventually going to happen is somebody's going to buy right here, okay? And then they're going to get into a tough situation, and for this next 4 years right here, their property value is going to be right about the same. So they don't have that luxury. They don't have that luxury of saying, hey, I bought, things got bad, but at least my house is worth more now, so I can sell it on the open market and at least cash myself out, get a little bit of cash to move on to the next thing. That stops happening. Happening.
Because, I think everybody that watches these things knows, but let's just really break down. If you bought at 200 and you own it for 4 years, and you sell 4 years later at 200, well, what you're not taking into account is, yes, you have 4 years of payments, but when you sell, you're having to take into account market or realtor fees, closing fees, realtor fees, closing fees on the front side. So you could be taking a hit in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it is the same, and you had 4 years of making payments.
Right. No, that's a great point. And as we're
that's why I'm here.
Thank you. As we're approaching this shift, I am seeing more and more folks that are from the wholesaler world, from the cash world, from the traditional world saying, hold on, wait a minute. I'm losing this entire segment of business right here. So now is a great time. If you're watching this video, now is the time to be figuring out this strategy because this is going to help you acquire in those times of trouble. Because again, if somebody cannot afford the realtor fees, the closing costs, all that kind of stuff, they kind of are just left facing foreclosure. So we're able to come in and we don't have to pay a single dollar out of our back pocket. The reason I got into this industry through Subject 2. And I found Sub2 through literally Google searching, how do I buy houses without any money? Because guess what, guys? I don't come from money. I don't have money. My family is not.
With those shoes?
Yeah. So, again, being in an industry or being in a position where I did not have the ability to go out lending and go get a hard money loan or whatever. I quit my job with $1,500 to get into to real estate investing. Now, I wouldn't tell somebody else to do that. Looking back, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? But it worked, right? Through hard work and finding this strategy of being able to buy. My first 50 houses took literally $0 out of my back pocket to buy.
Yeah.
right?
I think the biggest thing, and we talk about it all the time, but if this is your first time watching, first time listening, whatever, what you need to realize is real estate investing is so much more than wholesaling, flipping, and being a landlord. And I say it all the time about being the wild, wild west of you're only limited by your imagination on what kind of deal you can put together.
Right, and to that point too, I like saying about Subject 2 that it's unlimited, non-institutionalized, non-recourse lending, right? It's a way for you to buy as many houses as you want every month. I was buying 5, 6, 7 houses a month, 8 months into my career, when I had quit my job and didn't have, no lender's gonna let you do that, right? So those are all some of these great benefits from kind of a bird's eye of how Subject 2 is going to fit into your portfolio, how Subject 2 is going to help you to acquire these properties that are getting passed by all of I remember the last time we were in the down cycle, almost every house I bought had been told no by 2 or 3 other people by the time I got there, right? We are able to go back and kind of sweep up the crumbs behind people and actually build a legacy, actually build a portfolio that will be something that can pass on to generations of our family, or just let us live a really, really sweet life, whichever one you decide to go for, without having to be in that big pool that everybody else is searching for. So there's some big picture ideas on it, right?
So before we get to the meat,
yes.
If you're watching these videos and you get value, we get typically about 10% engagement on all our Facebook, all our YouTube. So please do me a favor. If you like watching these, just drop a simple hi.
Yeah.
Or a wave. You don't necessarily have to ask a question. You don't necessarily have to tell us where you're from. I would love to have those things. Yeah. But even if it's just a period, would love to have some sort of comment just to boost that engagement, because I don't know if 10% is good, but I'm like, why isn't it 100%? So if you're watching, just wave at us, something.
And another thing that I'd like to see from you, because here's the thing, is that
Does that make you laugh, Trey?
We want to shape these things around what you need to hear to get your portfolio where you want to be. So if something particularly blows your mind, can you just throw a timestamp out there? Tell me what timestamp it is, and if I'm noticing that more and more people are interested by certain subjects, I will love to make an extended video about those subjects for you.
In Charlotte, perfect. Charlotte on YouTube dropped a square. Perfect. That's exactly what I was wanting.
That's awesome. All right, so
let's get to the meat.
Yeah, we're about to go to break real quick. We're going to come back, and that's where we're going to actually hit the meat of this topic, where we're going to start showing you some of the technicalities of what's behind Subject 2. We're going to start talking about the standard mortgage as it stands, and how are we going to fit ourselves into that mortgage to build out our portfolios with unlimited, non-institutionalized, non-recourse lending. We'll see you on the other side. All right, guys, welcome back. Again, my name is Grant Kemp from Creative Cash Flow, helping you buy more houses. We're talking about Subject 2 today, and the broad side of it happened before the break, where we're just kind of giving the overview of, guys, this is something you really need to pay attention to. This is something that's going to help your portfolio grow with non-institutionalized, non-recourse, unlimited funding for your deals. At this point in time, I think we're ready to kind of dive into some of the technicalities. So let's dig into that some.
And before, we're going to dig it, but before that, thank you, because everybody is dropping. I see a lot of people on YouTube, a lot of people on Facebook. Thank you so much. As we get into the meat of it, ask those questions. I'm gonna try to keep. Let me rephrase. I'm gonna try to keep Grant focused by me not talking. But keep those questions coming. If Grant or I say something that makes you confused, or hey, you want more detail, drop in the comments, and we will get to that towards the end. And if we need to be here for 2 to 3 hours, we will be here 2 to 3 hours to answer those questions. But as we get in the meat of it, again, ask those questions. That's what we're here for. Use this as an opportunity for mentorship, and give us some meat.
Your digital mentor. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Let's jump over to
mentor.
I know, I've been thinking about that one. Okay, so let's jump over to the whiteboard here. Let's talk about how a standard mortgage works, okay? With a standard mortgage, you're going to have a house that you want to buy, okay? And let's say that, here's Joe. Joe wants to buy this house. Well, somebody's going to sell that house to Joe, right? We've got another family down here that's about to sell this house. They currently own it, and they want to sell the house to Joe. The document that they are going to sign to Joe that gives him ownership of this property is called a warranty deed, okay? So they are going to sign a document called a warranty deed. My handwriting is the best. No one can dispute. Shut up, Trey. I just hear him back there. So that is going to transfer the ownership of the property, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put ownership right here because this document is the document that determines who actually owns the house. So that warranty deed goes over to good old Joe homebuyer. Now, in order to I can't apparently speak and talk at the same time. In order to buy this property, well, Joe went to the bank. And Joe said, hey, bank, I would really like it if you would give me enough money to buy this house because it has a really cool toilet in the master bathroom. And so the bank is like, sweet, I'll do that for you. Now, what they're going to set up is going to be kind of a two-way street here. The bank is going to give Joe the money, right? They're going to fund this deal. They're going to send these dollar amounts, and they're going to send the dollar amount to his seller, the person that's signing over the warranty deed, and they're also going to split some of this off to pay for whatever liens are still on that house from our seller, right? Because our seller owed their bank money. Okay, so Joe's new bank gives the money to do that. The sellers say, okay, here's the warranty deed, Joe. You now own the house. And the bank, we will call it Bank of Propelio, is going to give what's called...
Which is not a thing, so
which is
please
not
don't
a
ask
thing,
us
yeah.
for
Oh, I
money.
heard that y'all are doing lending now. There's going to be a note, and then there's going to be some form of a mortgage, okay? Now, the word mortgage is more applicable in other states. Here in Texas, when we say mortgage, we're actually talking about two different pieces of documentation, which is called a deed of trust. And that deed of trust, it's the deed of trust in the note. That deed of trust is the document that the bank says, look, I'm going to give you this money. I'm going to pay off your sellers. I'm going to pay off their bank. I'm going to give you the money to buy that house, Joe, because I want you to own that house. But you're going to owe me at 3.5% for the next 30 years. Okay, so we're going to write that in a document called the note, and that's going to outline what the actual payments are going to be. But in return, I need you to sign a mortgage or a deed of trust. And what this says is, if you, Joe, don't pay me, Bank of Propelio, we get to foreclose on you and take this property back.
Can we real quick go over the difference between like a deed of trust and like a promissory note?
That's literally what I just did, I thought. So just for clarification's sake.
I'll see y'all later. That's it. Trey, you're supposed to stop me from saying stupid stuff.
Yeah, so the note is what, again, outlines the terms of the lending.
My bad.
No, it's all good. I had that moment of like, do I need to re-explain that? And I was like, no, he was probably reading as I was explaining. Okay, so yeah.
We're gonna take another break.
The note outlines the terms of the lending, and the deed of trust is the thing that says, if you don't pay me what's inside of this note, I get to foreclose on you and take that property back. Okay? There's some cool stuff that we need to know about that deed of trust. One of those things, just as a side note, just as a note of, hey, how do I build more properties? The trustee on that document, that's a nice little clue that gets filed in public record, because that trustee is going to be the attorney that actually does the foreclosure. And when this bank wants to foreclose on somebody, the first thing they do is they appoint a substitute trustee. They actually appoint an attorney to this file to do the foreclosure. And that appointment is a public filing. And I wish I knew someplace.
Subtle plug
I
coming.
wish I knew someplace that had this available.
And we get those questions a lot. And what we're getting to is Propelio.com. Part of our leads is we do offer appointment of substitute trustee leads. And it's like, well, what is this? What's the difference between this and this and this? And that's exactly what this is.
Right.
That's the appointment right there.
So what happens typically is BOP is going to put in this deed of trust. The attorney's office is just going to put like one of the partners at the attorney's office, or they might put somebody who goes and gets another job or whatever. Regardless, that trustee, whoever's listed on that deed of trust, that has to be the person that actually does the auction for this property. So if at that attorney's office that's handling this file, whoever the trustee was when you got this loan doesn't work there anymore, or it was a partner that's not going to do this file, they're going to put another attorney on this file. That's called an appointment of substitute trustee, and that becomes a great lead source. There are often times that I'm talking to people who I'm getting off the appointment of substitute trustee list, and you know, it's awkward, but it's good because we know we're getting in as early as possible. Is a lot of times we're the ones letting them know they're about to be foreclosed on. They don't even know yet that the foreclosure is occurring because that's that much of an early warning system.
And quick tip from like Daniel is that can be an awkward situation, especially if you're door knocking. They may think that you're like doing something that's kind of inappropriate by like, why are you predatorily being at my door? But if you have the documents with you, like the county record is showing, well, here it is.
Yeah.
And then that really gives you an opportunity to be someone to assist them and help them help them out of that jam versus the sleazy real estate investor trying to take advantage.
And here's another negotiation tip for that, right? Along those lines is, you've heard of like the compliment sandwich where you try, you're like, hey, this thing's good, this thing's bad, this thing's good.
Yeah.
The good thing that I try to sandwich around, like, hey, I know you're actually facing foreclosure, is, hey, you bought a house in a great neighborhood. I love this neighborhood. You made a great decision by moving in here. I've been searching public records because I like this neighborhood so much, and it looks like the bank is taking the very first steps that they do in a collection to move forward with that foreclosure. So I wanted you to know that because you made the right decision and you moved into this neighborhood, I would love to buy this house from you. So if you've at all kind of considered trying to get out, trying to not have to face that foreclosure and deal with it, I'll buy it from you right here and right now. Right? So it makes them feel good about the decision that they made to get there. You're building them up rather than being like, hey, did you know that you're a loser piece of crap that hasn't paid their money? Give me that house. So, all right, so let's get back to, as we just ignored.
And then we've done, and Daniel's done classes on this before, where I think we've done videos. We've done the video where he talks about the 12 ways to stop a foreclosure. And to be very clear, obviously we had that 2 seconds of joking about give me your house. If you find a way to have somebody to prevent them from losing their house, you need to do that. You be the decent human being.
Right.
That's my quote that's your golden nugget for the day.
Be a decent
human being.
Yeah.
No, there it is. Be a decent human being.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so important, and especially when we are getting into areas like this, because there's a lot of turning gears, and frankly, there's a lot of ways to screw people over in this industry, and we do not want to do that. That's, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I really encourage everybody watching to adopt this phrase that we've kind of coined inside of our office, that we're going to do the right thing, especially when it's not in our favor. That is the time when we have to shine, right? So we're always going to do the right thing, but we just need to know what is and what isn't something that can be done, and that's kind of what we're discussing today. So let's jump back into what the bank lending situation looks like. This is the typical bank lending situation. Now, when we are looking at buying a house, like this was just standard, right? This is standard retail. When we are buying a house, we're going to come in and we're actually taking Joe homeowner's spot, right, or home buyer's spot, because we're going to buy it from the seller ourselves. So let's draw a new picture here. So in this scenario, we've got the house, okay, that wants to be sold. Well, Joe, homeowner, I'm going to put them down here, and this will make sense why I'm doing this here in just a second. Joe, homeowner, is the guy that we're buying the house from, and he still owes money to BOP, that Bank of Propelio. So right here, he owes money here, okay? That's going to be done through a note and a deed of trust or mortgage, depending on which state you're in. There's also, like, California is a mortgage, what do they call it? A mortgage deed or a trust deed. That's
You're
what it is.
asking me for knowledge?
So they have that they still owe. Okay. They have the ownership of the property, and we want to come in and we want to get ownership of that property. So what we're going to do is we're going to step in, and this is going to be you. Skirt. This is you. Hooray! You have a cape because you saved the day. You like that cape? I'm a good artiste. And
Are you sure you're not the flag? That's never mind. That's just keep going. No, fluff was the first part. We promised meat.
so Joe is going to sell you this house subject to. And what that means is that he's going to give you the warranty deed, which in turn obviously gives you control and ownership of the actual house itself. And what you are going to do is you're going to agree to pay on his behalf that note and deed of trust. So you every month are going to just skip directly over here, and you are going to pay the note that he owes. Okay, that note payment is going to be money out of your pocket going, and that kind of gets him out of that situation. Now, the reason why I drew it like this is that I want to be very clear that this loan, the loan that's right here going between him and the bank, this one is in first lien position. Ryan, what determines lien position?
What's a lien? The determination of the lien position is simply when it's filed.
Simply when it's filed.
So it has nothing to do with value. So if I have a $10 lien and then somebody else has a $10 million lien, but I was first, my $10 lien could quite frankly wipe out the $10 million lien.
Absolutely. And why does that matter? I'm sorry, why does, well, no, I'm not going to go down that road. We're going to back up a little bit. Let's just act like I'm not talking.
Talking about Sub2s.
So this is in first lien position, okay? First and... Oh, I need to sleep more. Your eyes have been getting up at night. Okay, so this is in first lien position. Right, exactly. Now, the reason why I'm pointing that out is that when we're buying subject to, we need to make sure that Joe homeowner understands that they are protected in this scenario, okay? They gave us warranty deed. They gave us ownership of the property. But in return, we need to make sure that we're giving them something that says, hey, look, I know that we've promised to pay this mortgage on your behalf, right? So we need to give them the protection that what if we don't? What if we don't pay that on their behalf? We need them to be able to take the property back from us. And so when they give us the warranty deed, in return to that, we are going to give them something called a deed of trust to secure performance, okay? So it's a deed of trust to secure performance. And it's a little bit different because rather than how the deed of trust up here, this deed of trust says, hey, Joe owes money that is told to us in a note, and if he doesn't pay that, then we get to foreclose on him. That's what that deed of trust says. But in our scenario, when we're buying subject to, Joe isn't giving us a note. Joe isn't lending to us. What we are doing is we're promising to perform. We're saying, hey, I'll buy your house, and in exchange for buying that house, I will perform. I will continue to pay these payments on your behalf.
And if I don't,
you get to take this house back from me.
and as far as negotiating tactics, this is something you need to know and you need to have in your back pocket. Because I would say, and to be very frank and very authentic, I have very, very, very limited negotiation skills in the Sub2 world, but I sit around with you a lot. I'm assuming the number one rebuttal against this tactic or the strategy is, well, what happens if you don't pay?
Right. That is going to come up invariably. And so one of the negotiation strategies that I use is that through experience, right, through having gone through enough of these properties and bought enough of these properties, we kind of know what people are going to ask. And so I want you to bring stuff up like this before they even ask. Because the cool thing is that as you get experience and as you start knowing what people are going to ask, if you can answer all their questions before they ever get a chance to ask them, they feel so comfortable with you, right? That's part of being a good negotiator, is addressing issues they may have. So I just hammer all of those out. I don't even give them a chance to ask for it. So when it comes down to question time, they're like, "Nah, man, like you got it, and this is good, and we know you're looking out."
So just to recap in a way that Ryan can understand it, I, the investor, you, the seller, I'm making payments on your behalf. You move, I get the house, and I pay the bank. And by the way, if I don't pay the bank, you get the house back.
Correct.
That's Sub2.
So what that sets you up with is we've now got 2 liens in place. We've got a first lien to BOP. And then the second lien technically is between us and
I get so nervous every time he says the BOP
yeah,
or Bank of Propelio.
Because you guys are lending at like 3.5%.
Yeah, but here's what happens.
Loan.
The next time I try to get a hard money lender to sponsor one of our events, they're like, "Why would we sponsor your event? You have a lending platform
right?
now."
Yeah, it's 4.5% no doc loans.
Yeah, okay.
You just have to email. See, the trick to getting that is you just have to email Ryan like 4 times a day, and then he'll crack and he'll give it to you. But you got to do that for a couple months. So this DTSP is in second lien position, and the reason why I'm talking about lien positions here is that I want to discuss briefly, when you sell this property, that it is going to be technically a third lien position. If you were to sell it with owner financing to an end buyer, which is called a wraparound mortgage, which we talk about in other episodes, that would be a third lien, which means that you have the opportunity, if your buyer stops paying, to continue paying like you said you were going to do, which is what you need to do, and then just foreclose on your buyer and put somebody else in there. This lien position discussion is very important because let's just kind of graphically look at liens. If we have a lien to Wells Fargo that's filed on January 1st, and then we have a lien, February 1st, the values go up a ton, and they go to Bank of America and they get a home equity loan. And then March 1st, they get some plumbing done, and they don't pay their plumber, so they get a mechanics lien done on it. Well, what we're looking at here is a first lien position, a second lien position, and a third lien position. The reason why this matters so much is that if, let's say, they stopped paying this Bank of America loan, well, Bank of America is going to foreclose, and that wipes out any subordinate lending. It invalidates anything that's down the line from there. But if Bank of America foreclosed, they must still satisfy anything that's upstream from them. They must still satisfy that first lien position. So, or else they get foreclosed on and they lose the property too. So we're putting ourselves in this triangle right in the middle so that we can make money. And yes, sometimes you're going to have to continue paying on an underlying mortgage when you're not making money from this back end. And I want to talk about that for a second and saying, when you're talking about buying subject to, yes, I preach that you can get in with no money because I got in with no money. This is not a conceptual. This is not a, hey, this is a great way in concept that, theoretically that you could do that. I built my portfolio from no money using subject to. But we don't take the profits from those first few deals and go put a down payment on a car. We take those profits and we put it away for what if our buyer doesn't make a payment, or our renter stops making a payment, or we can't flip this property as quickly as we needed to, right? We need to have that money to satisfy what we promised Joe homeowner we would do, which is pay their mortgage on their behalf. Again, it's very important that we do the right thing, especially when it's not in our favor. And part of that is if you're going to stare somebody in the face and say, please sell me your house, I'm not going to give you any money, I just want you to let me take over on your loan, and I'm going to continue paying that payment on your behalf. Do it.
And other than, in addition to just doing the right thing and being a good, decent human being, as a real estate investor, you have so much working against you in the sense that in a lot of popular films, the real estate investor is the sleazy guy.
Right.
We're
the one that kicks out the old grandma.
We're kicking out the old people. We're doing, you're doing all these sleazy things. So you already have this public persona of being a bad dude. don't add to it by doing something shady.
Yeah, totally.
You always want to leave people with a good experience.
Reputation is everything.
Exactly. So again, do the right thing, but because of that persona.
Right.
Shut up, Trent.
Well, yeah, because
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just talking.
But we do. I mean, you're right. We have a perception of who the investor is, and that's one of the reasons why, if you look at my negotiations course that will eventually be available, is as Trey hangs his head in shame. We talk about one of the cornerstones of good negotiating, as odd as this sounds and as cheesy as this sounds, is being like honest. Actually just telling people what we're doing, because so many people are trying to tell people what they want to hear rather than what actually is happening, that when you're just genuine with people and you're like, yeah, this is how I'm going to make money and this is how much money I'm going to make on it and this is what I'm going to do, they're so relieved that they work with you. I buy houses all the time at offers that legitimately are lower than another signed offer that I see the contract of on their table, but they want to work with me because they know that I'm telling them the truth and that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. So I want you guys to take that and mimic it. Yes, being honest is awesome. It's also kind of self-serving in that way, right? But why not? I mean, that's a great position to be in. You're being honest and you're getting something out of it. Win-win-win situation. So we've talked about kind of the technicality of what throws subject to, right? This is Sub2 at its core. Is you are becoming the owner of the property through the warranty deed. You are continuing to pay the bank on their behalf. You're leaving the note and deed of trust in their name. You get the ownership and you give them a deed of trust to secure performance. That's Sub2. Now we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what are some of the, not rebuttals, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the
caveats, the little ins and outs.
Yeah, like the things that your seller's going to have a problem with, right? What are their questions?
Rebuttals.
Is rebuttal?
No, it's not rebuttals. It's shit.
I don't know, whatever. The questions that your seller is going to have, those things that you need to make sure. Objections. Boop. Teamwork. Oh, sorry, did I?
Trey. Anyway, we're going to take a break.
Yes.
We'll be right back.
All right. Welcome back. Hey, just in case you guys have forgotten, my name is Grant Kemp. I'm from Creative Cash Flow, helping you buy more houses. If you like how I teach things, if you are interested in learning more about creative strategies, check out CreativeCashFlow.com. I've got an entire online academy. I do a weekly live Q&A session for all my students, and I also do personal mentoring if you want a little bit more hand-holding, because it's we've got a drive here of helping people get to where they want to go with their portfolio. None of this would be happening with Grant Teach Me Something, with the education you're watching right now. None of this would be happening if it weren't made possible by Propelio.com.
And what is Propelio.com? Propelio.com, we are simply investor tools, software tools for real estate investors. So as an investor, you need basic things to be successful. You need leads, you need comps, and you need a website. So simply put, to dumb it down into the easiest way to form is leads, comps, websites. So a lot of the leads we've talked about today is from Propelio. A lot of the strategies you can get from the leads from Propelio. What we need the most of right now is MLS expansion. The number one, I don't want to say complaint, but the number one reason people don't move forward with Propelio.com is we're simply not in their market yet. Mm-hmm. The cool thing about doing Propelio TV is we're able to hit a national audience. Therefore, if you don't have Propelio.com or our services in your market and you want us there, please, please, please introduce me to a real estate investor broker in your network, and we will move heaven and earth to get there. Right now, we're working on Atlanta, we're working Louisiana, Seattle, Charlotte, Baltimore, but quite frankly, we want to be the entire country. So again, if you have a real estate, or if you are a broker, hit us up, Ryan at Propelio.com.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, so let's go into what are some of the objections that you might run into when you're talking about subject to. And while we're doing this, guys, just a reminder, please drop questions. We're going to get to that right after we talk about these objections. We're going to get to our questions. So like the video, share the video, tag somebody in it that you think might be wanting to know about subject to, but most importantly, engage, write us questions, let us answer this stuff for you.
And I'll throw this in here right now. we have, hopefully we've simplified it, the concept, but like everything in real estate, it's simple conceptually, but hard, it just takes work. Find a mentor like Grant, find somebody in your network that can show you the ropes, but most importantly, you need to have a good attorney, because the docs that come along with this type of transaction,
Right.
it is, doc heavy.
And I will give you guys a tip that for my students at CreativeCashFlow.com, I'm actually paying the exorbitant fees to get documents whitelisted to me, or white labeled to me, from attorneys, so that you can have a document library to download all of this stuff in a national sense. So that's something that we're working on this year. But again, like you said, nothing is more important than the documents than the attorneys that you're dealing with. You do need to be solid on that. So ask around and see who's being best used around your
So let's get to them
neighborhood.
rejections.
So one of the big objections that we will have that actually the seller will not know about, and we just need to fill them in, is called the due on sale clause, okay? And I'm sure we probably have had some questions about due on sale clause already dropped into the comments, but that is the thing that we need to be aware of. This is really the one risk of doing a subject to transaction. Now, subject to, again, is leaving a mortgage in somebody's name, but the person is selling that property to you, giving the warranty deed to you. In every mortgage, there is a section in that deed of trust, or in that mortgage, there is a section that says, if you sell all or part of your interest in this property, we, the bank, have the option, not the obligation, but the option to ask for the remainder of this loan amount to be due and payable, okay? That's the due on sale clause. Now, I've told you it's in everything. We got to understand that when we're buying a house sub-2, we are absolutely 100% triggering that due on sale clause. Now, notice I used the word trigger. I didn't use the word violate, because the due on sale clause does not say, don't sell your house or else we will call this note due. It says we have the option. The bank may ask for the remainder of that payment to be due. Now, let's look at the real world. Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
What does a bank want?
Money.
They want money. They want their payments, right? My joke that I make about due on sale clause is that if the bank wanted real estate, they'd be called Coldwell Banker. They wouldn't be called Bank of America. They want their payments. Now, historically speaking, and I'm going to call on the experience of my ex-partner, Scott Horn. I was partners with him for about 6 years, 7 years, something like that. But he's been doing this business since, the mid-'80s. So in that, our office in one way or another saw about 15,000, 20,000 of these types of transactions go through it. Of those, I've known of fewer than 10 to ever have the due on sale clause called, and I can really only name 4 or 5. But I'm saying fewer than 10 because I'm sure there's more out there.
And let's be clear, I think in this topic, you need to take out 07, 08 completely out of this topic, because in 07, 08, people were like calling notes that had nothing to do with sub-2 just because of the crash.
Right, yeah, and that's just typical foreclosure, right, yeah.
Well, not foreclosure, I'm just talking about, hey, I know you're making payments, but these other guys are being foreclosed on, and I got to save my bank, so I'm calling your note.
Okay, yeah, and
So
I'm just not familiar with people that experienced that hit even in the
Well,
crash.
maybe I just know more people.
Okay.
So let's just take out...
I mean, do you know people who have said they got a ton of loans called? Okay, that's good to know. So anyway,
basically what we're saying is it should be Ryan teach me something.
So we need to understand that in the real world, historically speaking, banks have not been calling these notes due. It's very rare that that happens as long as the payment is being made on time and the insurance is handled correctly. Insurance is a big part of this, and we did a full episode on insurance in the first season that I do recommend you going back and looking into if you're going to be doing subject to, because insurance is a doozy. That is something you need to understand about sub-2. But if the insurance is done right, if the payments are being made, historically speaking, they're just not calling those notes. Again, I'm going to say 10 out of 15, 20,000. That's a very low percentage. Now, obviously, you know some more people. Obviously, with anything that's ever going to happen, there's going to be case studies where the, what do they call it? Edge cases are occurring, right? Things are going to happen always. But what is the majority of that? Now, due on sale clause, again, is being triggered by us buying this house. However, it's not something that I'm super afraid of. It's something that we move forward on anyway. And I don't even go as far as to use the trust methods that you may be seeing taught by other gurus in the industry, which, again, as a brief topic on the trust, trusts are something that's misunderstood by 99.9% of the people out there. Therefore, it makes a really easy target for a guru to say, hey, I have all the answers. It's in a trust. And you're going to be like, I don't know about trusts. He sounds smart. That's probably right.
Yeah.
So be very aware of that. Now, what they're talking about, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this, a little bit more technical when I'm talking in this side, but just because I know there's going to be people watching this video who are going to be familiar with due on sale, and they're going to say, don't worry about due on sale. I've got the answer because Joe out of Oklahoma is teaching the trust. All I have to do is put it in a trust, and they're not going to call the note due. False. What they're relying on is they're relying on a law that happened in the mid-late 80s called the Garn-St. Germain Act, okay? And in the Garn-St. Germain Act, what happened is a lot of people were having their due on sale note called. And a lot of these people were having it called when they were really just transferring their property into a trust for estate planning purposes. They wanted their kids to, have a better chance of, when they passed and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So what happened is, big act went through. They said, okay, we're actually going to exempt estate planning trusts from the due on sale clause as a law, right? So the gurus go out and they say, well, look at that. If you just put it into a trust, no longer is it part of the due on sale because of Garn-St. Germain. And really, from a veil standpoint, sure, okay? Adding a trust into this equation can add an extra veil of protection for you in the transaction. I'm not saying that it doesn't, because it absolutely can. My personal property that I live in, that I own and is my house, I bought Sub2 and I put it into a trust because I wanted that extra veil of protection. But by no means is it a guarantee that says that the due on sale cannot be called, and we just need to be very aware of that, right? Mm-hmm. We follow?
Not at all. I think we should get back to Sub2.
Yeah. So that's kind of the due on sale clause right there.
Right. But as far as preventing the due on sale clause, and I'll lead into this only because we did it yesterday, not on the show, but in personal lives, our investor lives, is how. So I have the power of attorney of the person I just bought. What do I do now?
So there's some credit cards you're going to want to open, and. I'm kidding. Please,
trying to get back on the rails.
Please do not do that.
Basically, what I'm saying is you need to call the bank because you need to get all that information transferred over to you. But how do you transfer it over to you without making them go, wait a minute, did they just sell this house?
Yeah, and that's the one kind of tricky part about this is dealing with these banks, right? Typically, when we're introducing ourselves, we're saying we're managing this property. Mm-hmm. That's typically how we're introducing ourselves to the bank, right? It is a truth. Right, so we're managing this property for them, and then what we do is we just transfer, using the power of attorney of our seller, make the mailing address transfer over to us so that we're getting all of the correspondence from the bank so we know what's going on.
Right.
And we disclose this to the seller. We let the seller know that that's what's going on because the goal and the thing, this is actually going to be a benefit to the seller, is you get to tell the seller, hey, when you close with me, you get to wipe your hands and stop worrying about this mortgage. Yes, it's technically in your name, but we're going to be dealing with everything that has to do with it, and that makes them happy. Right? Mm-hmm. So we are going to do that. We are going to get insurance done the right way. We are going to call and make sure that our insurance is being put into the escrow account and that it's being accepted. And if it's not, we're going to work to get it accepted using somebody like Kim Stallings, James Jenkins, one of these guys that understands how this industry works to get that insurance.
So what do you not do?
You don't call them and say, hey, there, bank, I just wanted to let you know something cool. Did you know that I bought this house on 123 Main Street?
And I'll be making those payments.
We're going to be making these payments on their behalf. They're going to say, what? And then that's kind of forcing their hand, and they're going to have to call that due on sale clause. Now, I also want to point out a caveat here with Texas state law. Part of buying a house subject to, it does have in the Texas state property code that we need to send a letter to the underlying lien and let them know that this is what's happening. Consult your attorney on how you're going to handle that situation. Different attorneys are going to recommend different things, and that's the most important part to this, okay? So I'm going to kind of pump my brakes on that point in time and not tell you to go one way or another. However, I am going to say one of the things that attorneys that I trust in this industry have recommended is a signed waiver from the seller and the buyer saying we acknowledge that this was part of it, but we're actually just not going to do that.
But going back to that a phone call to the bank to get everything transferred over, it may sound kind of squirrely, it may make you nervous. But quite frankly, it's
don't care.
it's a 3 to 5 minute phone call.
Yeah.
It's
And the bank doesn't
hey,
care.
I've got this. I'm doing this. We need to change their address. We can go ahead and do it over the phone. And they're gonna be like, cool, whatever, da 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 da. And then they're gonna follow up by saying, yes, just fax over the power of attorney, and then we can solidify this. And then your dealings with the bank is over until you're asking for a payoff later, if you ever have to ask for a payoff.
Right.
Very, very. It may sound nerve-wracking, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's one
really
of the
not
most
bad.
more simpler things.
That's
than
how
this.
all of this industry is. It's just you just do it. You just do it.
Just do it.
All right, the next objection that you're going to have to know is getting a new loan. One of the things that sellers are going to be curious about is, okay, well, if my loan is staying in my name, okay, that's going to show up on my credit report, and what happens when I want to go get another mortgage for another house? Again, one of my favorite terms that, you'll hear Ryan quote, in the words of Grant, is historically speaking. We're always going to use the words historically speaking because we can't promise anything for the future that we can't promise. That's very important. We cannot tell them, oh, you're going to have no problem going and getting a new loan, because we don't know what their situation is. We are not the loan officer that's giving them that loan, and we can't make that promise.
That being said, the likelihood of you being able to buy a house with a foreclosure on your record is probably nil.
Totally. So they're looking at two different situations. One of the situations that our Sub2 lead is going to be in, oftentimes they will say, well, I'm thinking about just filing bankruptcy. And it's like, okay, well, just understand, if you file bankruptcy, yes, you'll be able to stay in that house, but quite frankly, and I can't remember the stat now, but it's a large majority, like 80% of the people who file BK to stay in a property do end up still defaulting on that in the future, and now you've shot your ability to get another mortgage for the next 7 years. By selling it to me through Sub2, I'm going to catch that mortgage up overnight, and then I'm going to be making these payments on time every month moving forward, so it's actually going to help your credit score grow over time, and you're not going to have to do anything for it. Now, historically speaking, our sellers have not had any issue going to get another mortgage. It used to be, back before about 2015, that they would count for the first year, they would count Joe homeowner's mortgage against his credit, they would count a third of that against his credit, his debt to income ratio for the next year. So in other words, you, the investor, buy this house from Joe, you're taking over on a mortgage from Wells Fargo. Joe's payment to Wells Fargo was $900. So now every month you're paying Wells Fargo $900. Joe wants to go get another mortgage. Joe sits down in front of his mortgage officer. He shows him all his taxes, all his income, all that kind of stuff. The mortgage officer is going to look at something called a DTI, a debt to income ratio. All of Joe's long-term debt versus his pre-tax income as a percentage. What is that? The banks want that to be under 43%. Okay? We as small creditors, just FYI, when we're selling properties, we have no DTI cap. But the banks want that to be under 43%. Now, what the bank would do before 2015 is they would say, okay, Joe, I see you actually owe Wells Fargo $900 a month. And Joe's going to say, yeah, but, whatever. Who's somebody? What's the name of somebody that's watching right now?
Charlotte.
Charlotte.
On YouTube.
Charlotte on YouTube bought my house and is paying those payments for me. And the new bank is going to say, oh, okay, cool. Can you prove that? Charlotte, your job is to provide Joe with the closing document, with the show that you've been making those payments, whether that's through canceled checks or however that requires, to show that to the new loan officer. The new loan officer is going to say, okay, Joe, I see that Charlotte's paying this for you. It's a $900 payment. We're going to count $300 of this towards your debt to income ratio for this next 12 months that she's making those payments. Once Charlotte has made these payments for 12 months, we're comfortable saying, yeah, Charlotte's a pretty reliable cat, and then we're not going to count any of this towards your debt to income ratio. That's how that worked up until about 2015. Well, about 2015, we saw a rollover where immediately Joe goes to the new bank and says, hey, I want to get a new mortgage. Charlotte from YouTube provides all the documentation to the new bank, and the new bank says, okay, cool, Charlotte's a cool cat. She's paying this for you. We're not going to count any of that payment against your debt to income ratio immediately.
I think the main lesson there, and this is going to sound like a subtle plug, but it's really not, is all these strategies you need to know. You need to know the surface level of the simplicity of it, but then you also have to keep learning, keep researching, and really be a student of the topic, student of the strategy. What I would suggest, the quickest way to really just get completely, all in on this subject matter is go back to the Facebook, the YouTube, start at episode 1 of Grant Teaches Something, and watch all of these. And I guarantee you watch all of these videos, it may take a month or 2 months of watching every single day, because we've done like 17 of them. We've done a lot. We've been doing it for a year and a half, almost 2 years. That being said, you will be so inundated with the lingo, with the knowledge that, you know, the way Grant just spit that out, you'll be able to spit that out as well. And you really want to have that in you before you take on a strategy like this without a mentor, without a JV partner. That being said, I know we're always just harping on take action, just go out and do it. Yes, with guidance.
Right.
But if you want to go out on your own and say you don't have guidance, learn this stuff. Really be a student and just absorb all of this before you move forward.
Right. Absolutely.
Raw work. Thanks, Trey.
Raw work. That's awesome. So yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, we do want you to be well versed, but most of all at the beginning, like you said, you just need to recognize a situation and know the people in your area that can help you close that type of deal, right? If you're in DFW, reach out to me. I buy houses in DFW. I'd be glad to JV with you on a deal. You'll learn how stuff is going. We both make money on it, right? Out on the west side of Fort Worth, Tang is a good resource for that, right? If you're in, you know, whatever city it is, just look for the people that are doing Sub2. Reach out to them when you find this kind of situation.
So as far as meat for this, when are we going to get to the meat of this?
Yeah, I'll throw this iPad at you. So that is the other objection, is knowing a new loan. How is a new loan going to be handled? You need to be able to recite that to your seller and allow them to understand the comfort level that they need to have. But again, telling them, I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know what your situation is going to look like, and I don't know if laws are going to change in the future. But historically speaking, this is how we have seen this handled. My sellers have had no issue getting a new mortgage, right? And the way that I kind of finalize that is I say, look, if you were going to be able to get a mortgage without this on your record, you should have no problem getting a mortgage with this on their record.
And I don't know if this is objection, or I know you've had this situation. I don't know if it's a Sub2 situation, but what happens when you do a Sub2 or you buy a house and then all of a sudden there's no more house? Was that a Sub2 or was that a wholesale deal? I can't remember.
That was a Sub2. Yeah. So here's my real life horror story for you. As I bought, this is actually one of the reasons why I don't sell houses as is anymore. I know a lot of people that get into this industry, they're like, oh, just sell the house as is. I sold a bunch of houses as is whenever I first got into this business because I didn't have the capital capacity to actually take the house down and do the rehab on it. But one of the negative sides of that is I bought a house Sub2. Sold it to somebody as is. They were actually an investor. This was a non-homestead for them. They were going to go in and fix it up and rent it out. Cool, no problem. They didn't fix it up and rent it out. The city didn't like that they didn't fix it up and rent it out, and the city took that hoe down. And so
the house?
That house down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The city took that hoe down, and so I we kind of got wind that it might not be there. So I drove out one day and I got there and there wasn't a house there anymore. So currently we're in a little bit of let's see what happens, because they're still paying us every month on this. Our buyer's still paying us every month, and we're still paying the bank every month, but there's not a house there. So our collateral is shot. So we're just kind of hoping that the bank doesn't say anything. And
so and the buyer's still paying for
the
paying. Land?
I mean, I sold them the house. They're paying their $750 a month or whatever, as though there's a house on it, but there's not a house on it.
But this has been going on for a while, though.
Yeah. We figured this out last summer, and we're just playing it by ear.
So there's your other golden tip for the day is, and I notice how I didn't say nugget, because it's not a nugget. It's like when shit happens, just hope for the best.
Yeah, sometimes. So all right, so let's jump into some questions here.
I think we should take a break first, and then because we do have quite a few questions.
Good.
And what I want to do on this break is make sure everyone realizes that this is live. Take advantage of it. Like I said before, if we got to be here for another 30, 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever.
French girls.
Hush now. Hush. We're trying to keep this meaty. That was a wrong time. Anyway, take advantage of this live session. Ask questions. Jump in the comments. Let us know you're here. I know we got quite a few people watching on YouTube, on Facebook, both. So use this as an opportunity to jump in. And, Trey, take us out. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're back here. Grant, teach me something, and we want to jump into y'all's questions here. So if you guys have questions, please drop them into the comments. If you're watching on the replay, still drop it in the comments. Just tag me at Grant Kemp if it's something directed at me. On YouTube, I think we're just at CreativeCashFlow.com.
Correct.
Or at CreativeCashFlow.
And I'm not sure how the YouTube comments actually. Usually, if we get a comment I'm like Grant, you need to answer this, but we'll get there.
Okay, so Tyler Waldrop has a question. What is it says what is standard terminology? I feel like this is like a Jeopardy, like we get the answer.
Maybe it's a two-part
we get
question.
the answer first. What is standard terminology? Sub2, subject to, or subject to? That is an awesome question. So if we can put that on the screen for everybody to see, because the spelling is what's so important here. All 4 of those options are the same thing. They're just different ways that people type it, right? So subject to, at its core again, stands for I will buy your house subject to the underlying lien staying in place as is, and these are all ways that people will type to abbreviate it. Great question.
And then one, plus on that is subject to doesn't necessarily have in our world, in our
real estate industry.
In the industry, the subject to is subject to the underlying lien.
Right.
But as far as the contract goes, it could frankly be subject to you fixing the roof, subject to you fixing the foundation.
Yeah.
So subject to can mean a lot of things, but in our world, its standard is subject to the underlying lien.
Yep.
I do stuff too.
I do stuff. All right, so what else we got? Andrew, I would love to know how to establish a price point so that the Sub2, which works dandy in cheaper Texas, can be worked for higher priced states. That way I can tweak the equations needed to make a deal work on the fly, and so I can devise lists and then market to those lists with subject to explicitly on my mind when I market. So Andrew, I think this is probably not the answer that you're looking for me to say, but it's the answer that I'm going to give, which is it's the same. Subject to is an acquisition model. Again, now one of when we talk about our rules of thumb, I still stand by that. One of my big rules of thumb is that if you're going to put cash into a deal on a subject to deal, in other words, you're going to catch up their mortgage, or you're going to give the seller some cash to walk away, or whatever. If it's going to take cash out of your back pocket, I want you to double that number, and that's how much equity I want you to have in the deal. The reason I say it like that is that we've talked about briefly how wholesalers can't buy at high LTVs, cash buyers can't buy at high LTVs because they're risking actual cash. Well, my situation, or my position when we're talking about subject to, is that you can buy at high LTVs. You can buy a house at 100% of its value and still turn a bunch of money off of that, as I have done time and time again. But you can't buy a house at 100% LTV and have put 50 grand into it. That doesn't make sense. Your 50 grand isn't protected. So if you need to bring up this payment because they're $3,000 behind, well then I just want you to have $5,000 or $6,000 worth of equity in the deal.
Right, and this goes back to why when you start making profits, don't start buying a new car, get that rental Lambo, buy all these things, because even though it takes no to limited money to get started, if you really want to grow and increase the amount of properties you could buy, you do need to have some sort of war chest. You need to have coffers, and that's why you don't buy your shiny toys until you can afford the shiny toys. So, like, again, a situation where you do need to cash somebody on payments, you need to have the money to do it.
And back to the question with Andrew, I think the question that you would like me to answer is more so on the disposition side, right? Because Sub2, I'm going to say, is the same regardless of the price point. You can buy Sub2 a house that's $2 million if it still makes sense to flip it or do whatever on that back end. But what I have found is that around here, I don't like buying over $200,000 and a cap at $250,000 because our rent rates don't really keep up with that. And what we really want is our rent rate to be 1%-ish of the ARV in order for it to really work with a seller finance to disposition. But Sub2 again is an acquisition. So if the rent rates make sense for you to acquire Sub2 or it's able to flip, whatever, Sub2 getting in, that's not going to change depending on the price point.
And just a random side nugget for this right now, where we're in that kind of not really sure where the market's going. I'm not a sky is falling kind of guy, but I would make sure that if I'm buying something over 300, that there is so much meat on the bone that if the market does shift or does tank or whatever, that I have the ability to get out of it without losing my ass.
Right.
Anyway.
Bootsy Collins, great bass player. Hey, Ryan and Grant, Brandon from Baton Rouge, I almost said Los Angeles, Louisiana. You guys are the best. Thank you. You are the reason I started watching Propelio and also why I have the confidence to finally get into real estate. That is the coolest thing. Thank you so much, man. I will tell you something. This is an industry that I have very aggressively pushed into with my own personal time spending. I know Ryan as well. I've got a passion for teaching you guys, and I really like seeing other people succeed. But without hearing that kind of feedback from people,
it's
it can
just
be hard.
three guys in a room.
It's just three guys in a room facing a camera. So I cannot tell you how encouraging that is to me. If you guys have had your life affected in a positive manner by something that we're doing up here, yes, I kind of want my back scratched. I would like to know that this has helped you because that's what keeps us going. That's
and
what
I don't
makes
mind
it.
Starbucks gift cards. Sent to 12224.
So again, if you've got a success story, a way that you've been able to buy a property because of something that you learned from us, please share that with me. That would be the coolest thing ever. I appreciate that. All right, so Sonia, what if you sub-2 a house in pre-foreclosure? Where would you get the money for the arrears? That is a great question as well. And we can do a whole series on that. But what I want to do is just give kind of the short answer, which is either you need to have the cash on hand or private money, right? There's going to be a lot of folks that have an IRA or something along that lines, some cash sitting ready to be invested, and maybe they only have 50, 60, 70,000 bucks in there. That's not really enough to buy a house and fix it up and everything like that.
Yeah.
But it is enough to lend you the money that you need to catch up these arrears and put money into the rehab of that property.
And the only way you find that out is by going to networking events and talking to people. There's someone who watches the show, and I won't name drop anybody, but we were just talking, and they're fairly new to the business, and they've been trying for a long time, and they're just now starting to get legs under them to get some deals going. That being said, I've got 58 sitting over here, I've got 300 sitting over there. And again, they're at an age where they don't want to risk losing that. That being said, the investors everywhere, Grant, myself, are always looking for money. I mean, hell, Daniel and I took a $10,000 loan the other day just because we had some timing issues with some closings, and we needed to have we just wanted to get the head start on the next project. So. Everybody is always looking for money. So like a second or a third position, if you've got 20, 30, 50 sitting there, I guarantee you somebody in your network would love to place that.
Yeah.
That being said, always trust but verify, vet who you're talking to. Would hate for somebody to lose their ass on money dealing with a shady character.
Yeah, and if you're interested in doing that kind of lending, reach out to me because there's ways that you can lose on that. So you want to know kind of what the things are to look out for. Pam Douglas asks, which owners make the best subject-to candidates?
I love that question.
That is a great question. So this is going to be one of those things where, especially as this market shifts and foreclosures start arising, your pre-foreclosure list is going to be your subject-to shooting fish in a barrel. Because their option is lose their house, get foreclosed on, and have a foreclosure on their record, or sell their house to you and have a chance. The way that I phrase this to our pre-foreclosure guys when I'm right there ready to close the deal is I'm going to say, look, right now you're facing foreclosure, same kind of thing. So your option is either you get the foreclosure and you're not going to be able to buy something else because it shoots your credit, or you sell it to me, I catch up your payments, I make your payments on time for however long that is, and worst case scenario, if I don't make these payments, right? And you have to take this property back from me, well, I will have already fixed it up. I will have already caught up the payments. We will have helped your credit for several years, and now you'll be pulling or getting a house back that you owe less on, and ideally, most likely, the property values have gone up on it. So here's the closing line. So if your worst case scenario is better than the situation that you're in right now, why would you not move forward?
And another thing that you've said in the past is, because that is a concern of what happens. It's like, well, first of all, if I'm going to catch you up on the rears and I'm going to do all those things that you just said, that does not make business sense to me to allow to miss a payment and risk losing my investment.
Yeah, I always say the hardest part of this industry is finding the asset. So once I find this asset, it makes no sense for me to let that thing go. Jesse jumps in and says, for a first-time deal searcher, do you need to have the contract in hand when you convince sellers of the Sub2? Not sure to convince the seller or create the attorney relationship first? That's another great question. And that's frankly, again, why I'm paying the exorbitant amount of money to get contracts white labeled to me. Actually, myself and Mitch Steven are going to be splitting the cost so that we can offer these to people, because I do believe it is better to have that contract with you on day one, on that appointment. However, the way that things work with the attorneys that I know that are worth working with in this industry is you're going to go get it contracted using your state promulgated form, like the TREC 1-4, right? And once that's contracted on the TREC, you're going to send that to the attorney. They're going to work up the addendum A that goes over all the owner financing Sub2 stuff, and then you go back and you get both things signed. I've talked with Scott Horn. He's actually going to give me a short form of that addendum A so that we can give that to all of our students at CreativeCashFlow.com. So if you're a member there, be looking out for that. I'll announce that when that's coming out soon. So you can at least get that signed on day one, then go back and get the rest of it filled out by the attorneys, and then come back and get that signed. So I would prefer for you to have those contracts. I'm paying a lot of money so that you can have those contracts, but until then, there is still a solution, and that solution is get a contract, a normal sales contract, have the attorney fill out the addendum, then you get the addendum signed with your seller. Mm-hmm. All right, Tyler.
I mean, I don't know how to add more. That's a.
Sure.
I think you wrapped up that in a very good tight bow.
Thank you. Tidbit, prefix for the prefix mort is Latin for death. Mortgage.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it is death.
He's like, what does that have to do with this? But I thought it was
No,
funny.
it's good. That's good to know. Sonia says, hey, Travion, can you make a GIF out of Ryan doing that give me your house?
Give me your house. Give me your house. Anyway.
I'm Jeremy Collins Sr. I need to learn this from top to bottom. I'll be working with pre-foreclosure leads. Well, Jeremy, check out CreativeCashFlow.com. Check out the Propelio Academy. At CreativeCashFlow.com, again, I teach all of this stuff from start to finish. I do a weekly live Q&A every Monday night where I answer all the students' questions, and we do have a document library. We do have resources available for you there because we want to help you buy more houses. That said, I've got a great module on seller financing and Sub2 on all of those aspects of it at Propelio.com/academy, where you're also going to find a ton of other information about a ton of other strategies that are very great for you to know and absolutely free to you. You just have to put your email address in and you'll get all of this. We have a giant calling of getting real, actionable information to people and not being the typical guru who's going to charge you $5,000 to teach you how you can pay them $20,000. That is not what education is going to look like moving forward, and it's because of the efforts that we're making here, and you should take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. All right.
We like Grant.
Charlotte, do you notify the mortgage holder of this arrangement? We actually discussed this in this a little bit briefly.
You notify ESC.
Yeah, notify ESC. Yeah, I'm gonna answer that again with consult your attorney, because that is something that depending on.
We're not attorneys.
We're not attorneys.
Good.
Depending on your state, depending on your state laws, that answer is going to be different. So consult your attorney. That is one of the areas that you need to be aware of. Fawad, BOP Bank, I love it. Watching you while waiting on Wireline to rig up their BOP. Great job, guys. I wonder what a BOP is.
It's nothing. It is a fake hypothetical.
No, to wire up their BOP. He's doing something called a BOP.
Oh, I thought he was talking about the Bank of Propelio.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I thought he was
did
moving
it
forward.
Yeah. So, guys, again, Bank of Propelio. Propelio is lending out of Ryan's personal.
Hush.
Dominique,
that is not a thing.
Is the deed of trust on a piece of notebook paper or something a little bit more professional? Is it notarized? Yes, that's thank you for asking that question. I'm totally against the let's sign this paperwork on the back of a trunk and get this deal done. Everything gets closed through an attorney's office. All of the docs are drafted by attorneys. You do it very officially. Everything is recorded publicly, notarized, signed just like a title closing. Yes, that's the way that you go about doing things. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Collins, what if they say, I don't want the house back?
And this was asked when we were talking about the seller, and you're like, and if all goes to hell in a handbasket, you get the house back.
Well, yeah, I mean, so really the worst case scenario, okay, that we've never had occur, and I will phrase it that way. Hey, this is the worst case scenario. We've never had it happen, but let's at least talk about it. Worst case scenario is my buyer stops paying, I stop paying, you don't want the house back and you don't want to pay. Well, then your bank is going to foreclose, and that's going to show up as a foreclosure on your record at that point in time. However, again, if you're marketing the pre-foreclosure leads, again, their worst case scenario at that point in time is the same situation they're in right now. So they have a chance. One option, they got a chance. One option, they don't. It just makes sense to go with the option where they have a chance.
But going back to what you were saying earlier, the hardest part of this business is finding an asset.
Right.
Once you have the asset, you're going to move heaven and earth to make sure it makes sense and you make money off of it.
Matt Smith asks, how do you find out if they haven't made payments?
And this is in regards to you bought it and then you sold it.
Okay. So how do we find out that our buyer hasn't made payments?
Right, because I think what he was referring to is when they're making payments, maybe there was a disconnect of, am I making payments straight to the original bank, or does it funnel through you first?
So
maybe go into that
I'll address kind of where the money, follow the money. So what's going to happen, like if we do sell with a wraparound mortgage, which is the owner financed way of selling in this manner, that means that we've bought Sub2. We are continuing to pay payments on somebody's behalf to Bank of America, and then we have sold it to Jose Homebuyer, who is paying us every month. Well, Jose pays us every month $1,000 to us, writes it out to our LLC's name. We are going to pay $700 a month to Bank of America directly. Even though that loan has Joe Homeowner's name on it, we're going to be paying directly to the bank from us. Okay? That's how we handle things. That little act of accepting a payment and dispersing a payment is called servicing. What I've just described is us servicing our own note.
Subtle plug, aren't you creating that?
Actually, I've nixed that.
Oh, okay.
For now. We will be doing a servicing company at some point, but I've nixed that for the beginning of the year. But we do service our own notes. If you are getting into this industry, you should probably use a third-party note servicer if you're going to be doing something along those lines, which is paid for by your buyer, and that buyer is going to pay whoever, Evergreen Note Servicing, August REI, whoever. August REI is going to deposit your profits into your bank and send a check to the underlying mortgage every month, and that's how that servicing is going to be handled. All right, so let's jump back in. Let's see, do we have any other questions
We have several.
We have
so
several.
if you have an appointment, I'm sorry, you're not going to it anytime soon.
All right.
like,
I actually do. So,
all right, let's speed round
So
this
here's
thing,
the thing: is I just need to be back at my office by about 1:30.
All right, well, let's start. Well,
so
then
I'm gonna
stop interrupting.
I'm gonna kind of push through these answers, right? Because we are pushing out more content to you through the Creative Cashflow Academy at my office. So Jeremy Collins, what docs will we need? How do you fill them out? Where do you get them? Great questions. You need to go to an attorney that's handling owner financing. If you're here in Texas, I recommend using Scott Horn for your Subject 2 stuff. I also recommend using Matt Aycock for your general attorney work with that kind of stuff. And Matt is in a couple of other states as well.
And Jeremy Collins, how do you get in with no money if they are behind? I'm confused. And this goes back to when we were talking about sometimes there are situations where you need to catch people up in the arrears. Mm-hmm. And if you do have money, this is the ones that you'll need to be able to hit.
Right, but then also you can get somebody to lend you that money. That's zero money out of your back pocket, but because you know how to orchestrate a deal and leverage your knowledge, you don't have to spend money. That's where I came from. I had to catch people up. I had to put $6,000, $10,000, $12,000 of closing up, but it wasn't my money. I leveraged my knowledge for other people's money.
And that's why, going back to the scenario I was talking about last night, meet somebody at a networking event, they have a relationship, and then you find out they have 50K and you need 12.
Yep.
Hey, I'll give you a second.
Yep, absolutely.
Second lien.
All right. Dominique, what if the seller has like a $20,000 loan past due before they foreclose? How would we get that money to pay to reinstate? Again,
same thing.
Private money is going to be very beneficial to you guys here. And keeping in mind, if you do, this is one of the reasons why you might want to sell with a rep, because when you sell with a rep, you get a 10% down payment. So 10% of that ARV may take care of a significant chunk of whatever you've had to put in cash up front.
And that's the disposition.
That's the disposition side.
We didn't really cover this time, but go watch other videos.
Cynthia, I'm glad you're making this crystal clear for someone who hasn't done a Subject 2. Thank you, Cynthia. I'm glad that this is coming across as crystal clear. That's very important for us. Jeff.
And I apologize if I ever stopped that, if I did the murky.
If Joe Homeowner escrows taxes and insurance in the monthly payment, then I assume that must continue when making payments on Joe's behalf. And what if you don't? You want to use Joe's insurance company after you take possession. I zoomed past this earlier, but I did mention we're replacing Joe's insurance policy with a new insurance policy in the escrow account at the underlying mortgage. So yes, it will hold escrow, but you do replace that insurance policy that was currently there with a new insurance policy. And I encourage you to go back and watch. In season 1, we did an insurance episode that is going to explain everything you need to know on your insurance side for subject to and owner financing. Jeremy, what about the $1 million question that almost everyone asks, which is, how do you avoid the possibility of the due on sale clause? Well, guys, like again, we talked about this briefly earlier before the break. You can't. Due on sale clause is there, and you want to do everything you can to avoid it, like handling insurance correctly, like not being an idiot when you talk to the bank, making the payments on time every month, and if you need that extra veil of protection, that trust is a way that you can go there, but just understanding it's not a guarantee. But there are ways that you can set yourself up to have the least chance of getting due on sale clause called, but you can never fully remove that from being a possibility.
And to be clear, it's very, very rare. And
Very
as far
rare.
as being an idiot, I've been one of those idiots before.
All right, Homero, how do you create a third or fourth lien to pay off reinstatement amount, rehab, and sell it to a note investor? I would love to answer that, but unfortunately, that's just way too big of a can of worms to answer.
That's the private money.
Yeah, it's a private money answer, and I can get into all those ninja ways of doing things, but not in the amount of time that we have for this.
Is basically just have an attorney and have those conversation networking events to get money.
Join CreativeCashFlow.com and ask me during the Monday night.
That's the easy one.
Monday night Q&A session. Justin Baker, do you guys have any laws like distressed homeownership laws that prevent you from reaching out to these homeowners? Washington State has a law that makes it challenging to approach to distressed sellers. Yeah, and again, this is why we always encourage you to look at your state local laws.
Not a lawyer.
Because we are not attorneys. We don't have things like that, although we do have some laws about like the marketing that gets sent to a foreclosure lead that we can't like promise that we can save them from foreclosure, things like that frankly most people just flat out ignore, but we should be aware of whenever we are marketing to somebody in that realm. Always talk to your state local attorneys. But that's good to know about Washington. And I'd actually like to know if you have a way to link me to those specific laws, like if you actually know what those laws are, I would like to know those. I'd like to see them. Cynthia says, if the owner is behind and I need upfront money to catch them up and I don't have it, should I partner with an investor who has cash and the experience? Absolutely. That is absolutely another option of doing things. That's actually, when I say I had private money to close them, that's how my partnership, I went and I knocked on the door of Scott and I just bugged him enough until he brought me in under his wing, and he was the capital that funded all of our deals to get this stuff going. So that is absolutely a way of doing these things.
And then on top of that is make sure you fully utilize that relationship and really suck in as much knowledge. Be a sponge anytime you JV.
And offer value, guys.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, and this is going to be a little bit douchey of me right now, and I fully admit that, and I'm sorry. But the amount of people that just message me on Facebook, like, analyze my deal for me. Like, hey, I've got this deal, and it's this and this and this and this and this and this and this. What am I getting out of that? Why, you know that I spend 14 hours a day working on my own portfolio. What are you offering me to try and get me to run your deal for you, right? That's not the way to approach somebody. I think, and again, I know I'm being, but if I think of trying to approach somebody that's as far ahead of me in their career as I am of the person like, why would I think that they're going to just stop everything and analyze my portfolio for me?
Yeah, provide value, but my point is, once you've already established that joint venture where, hey, you've got cash and you've got experience, fully recognize the opportunity to learn as much as possible.
And that's what I'm saying is don't just knock on somebody's door and say, do this for me. Tell me how I'm going to do this deal. Say, hey man, I really want to make money on this. I know that you're where you're at and you know how to make money on this. I'm willing to give you a portion of this deal or whatever to figure out how this works. And then when you do that, be like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to bust my ass to work with you and try and get this together. That's how me and Scott got started, is I just kept bugging him, and I finally was able to get under his wing, and we did some deals together, and it took me 3 or 4 months before I was a legitimate partner with him, and we were buying houses like wildfire because I showed up at 7 a.m. the next morning with khakis on and a tucked-in polo because I didn't know what else I was supposed to do.
And Trey, we need to have a new thingy, so this is not a nugget, but maybe an etiquette thing.
Yeah.
So from an etiquette standpoint, once I approach Grant here and I show him my deal and we start talking about it, at that point in time, there is some sort of handshake agreement that Grant's a part of the deal. So whether Grant gives me an idea that I can go out there, I still need to send him a check of some sort of monetary value.
Yeah, I mean,
or some sort of
something.
appreciation.
And to that point, and
That's
I know
an
this,
etiquette thing.
this blew up into a little bit of.
I know. I'm sorry.
But to that point, like for instance, on and you should be part of these groups, these Facebook groups. I'm a part of Roughneck to Real Estate. One time, Corey just tagged my name on a post that somebody was like, hey, what do I do with this? And he was like, oh, Grant might have something to do with it. He just tagged my name. I ended up closing that deal, and I shot him $500. Now he just elected to have that go to charity, which was awesome. But just for tagging name, right? If somebody's involved in your deal, try to hook them up somehow.
Yeah.
All right, Cynthia. Oh, I'm sorry, Jaime.
Or did we already do that one? Yeah, we already did that one.
Yeah. Jaime, does the deed of trust to the seller have to have a monetary value? I know in the cash flow world, if you were to give the seller money, you'd want to give them a second and not a wrap note because you'd be giving them a huge internal rate of return due to the equity in the wrap. Really, the question I think is only on that first part of does the deed of trust to the seller have to have a monetary value? I mean, yes. I don't know what other value. I mean, it's so in a way. So like the deed of trust to secure performance, it's saying I'm going to perform by paying a note that was originally dated this and has this amount on it, right? There's always going to be some kind of dollar amount tied to that because the whole point of the deed of trust is saying we owe money, and if we don't pay that money, then you get to take our collateral from us. Mm-hmm. One, what are the top 3 ways to get leads for Subject 2?
Simple, basic, quick.
Great. So Propelio.com, check out their affidavits of heirship leads. Actually, really all of those except for like probates are not going to typically be a lead that you can do Subject 2 with. But yeah, it's going to be all of the marketing that you're already doing is how you get a Subject 2 lead. I think that's one of the bigger mistakes that people make in getting into this industry is they think that there's some kind of like just like magical niche that is only for Subject 2. And really, if you're in this industry actively marketing, you're probably turning away Subject 2 deals left, right, and center because you're just not actively recognizing that they're already in the leads list that you're already working.
Yeah, so I think the question, I don't want to say is wrong, but the way of looking at it is you're just marketing for houses, and Sub 2 is just a tool in your toolbox. Mm-hmm. It's another strategy to close the deal.
Mm-hmm. Joseph, can this strategy be done in California? If so, can you recommend any attorney that can help with the documentation, etc.? I believe yes. I don't know of any reason, like this is going to be one of those things where it's like, I don't know of a reason not, but that doesn't mean that there's not one because I'm not an attorney. I don't have a great California attorney recommendation, but I can tell you that part of our growth path over this next, several months is well, I don't even know if I'm allowed to disclose. We have some things in the works to help you guys out.
If you're watching
with that.
from California and you have a good attorney, please drop in the comments.
Absolutely.
There you go. Easy, right?
Andrew, why not just quote Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, USDA?
This is when I think
guidelines.
This is when we were talking about like when you're talking about when people have rebuttals,
them having a new
the objections,
DTI.
Well, when we were talking about the historically speaking,
right,
that kind
right.
of thing.
Yeah, and Andrew, that is I'm going to take this moment to go what seems like off the track, but it's really not, which is when you have something that you have that is a unique offering to the industry, use it, okay? Too many people get into the industry and they say, hey, well, Grant made all his money by starting fully zero money out of his pocket and doing Subject 2, therefore that's the route that I'm going to go. Well, Grant did it with mailers, that's the route I'm going to go. A, mailers aren't working anymore, so that's not going to be applicable. B, my skill sets may not be the skill sets that you have. We all have what's called a native genius, and you need to play into those things. So to tie this together, Andrew, I happen to know, is a loan officer. So Andrew knows these FHA guidelines, VA guidelines, all that kind of stuff. Is that something that somebody needs to know to offer to a seller to get this deal done? Absolutely not, because I don't know them, but I get these deals done all the time. Mm-hmm. We can tell them how these things work, but if you have that unique insight, use that unique insight. For instance, one of my unique abilities is the tech side of things. And it took me several years before I realized, oh, wait a minute, not every real estate investor knows how to use technology, because I come from the IT world, right? Maybe I should start incorporating this more into what I'm doing. And that has given me some strides. If you have something unique to you, don't just look at what other people have done to get successful. Find your unique native geniuses and incorporate those into your pitches. Good?
Cool.
Sonia, when you make a payment to the bank, do you just send a certified check? We don't even send a certified check. We just send a regular old check.
Yeah, because again, what do banks like?
Money.
They like money.
They want their money. They don't care whose name is on the check. How can I reach out to you for a JV? I'm a licensed Texas realtor and beginning investor. I get DFW leads too. That's excellent. Jeremy, you can just hit me up on Facebook. You can shoot me a message on Facebook when you've got a deal.
This is from YouTube though.
Oh, I'm sorry. If this is on YouTube, then you can find me on Facebook. Again, Grant at CreativeCashFlow.com. That's going to be my email address that you can get a hold of me with. And I'd love to JV with you. If it's a deal, it's a deal. We'll make it work, right?
Give me your houses.
Jesse, so look up property leads on Propelio, convince seller to let you make payments for them, use Creative Cash Flow sheet to check the rehab price, get an attorney to provide docs. That all sounds great. Yep. Andrew, you won't just be able to use a template for the addendum over and over. Each deal hits an attorney's desk. Again, that kind of goes back to differing views on how this should be done. I think, yes, you should have that addendum to fill out each time. That is why, again, I'm paying the money to get a white labeled contract for you guys as members of CreativeCashFlow.com. But the way that it currently works is you need to go each time to the attorney, because that is the way that that attorney who created this documentation wants things done, and we want to do the right thing by them by doing the process the way they want it done. Dusty says, have you ever done a subject to after the homeowner has done a loan modification? Anything different to expect compared to a non-modified loan sub-2? Yes, I have, actually. And one of the great things about that is that you're getting in on loans that are at like 2%. You know, a lot of times those interest rates are super low, but you need to be aware that those loan terms are oftentimes like 40-year loan terms. They've pushed out past that 30 years. So if you are going to sell the house with a wrap mortgage, we can only cap at a 30-year mortgage to our buyer, so we need to re-amortize that modified loan over 30 years and send in extra payments every month to make sure that we are going to pay down the underlying mortgage at the same speed that our wrap is being paid down to us. And that's a bird's eye view of something that I can go over in on another day in more detail, but that's the only real thing about doing the loan modification side that's going to be different than like a typical mortgage.
And before we head out, I just want to say thank you so much to Grant. I know we kind of joke around a lot up here, and speed around, I got a performance to go to, but if you like what Grant's doing, please give some love. Please like CreativeCashFlow.com, his Facebook. But doing these shows every single week, it is an investment. It is a sacrifice. He's got so much other stuff to be doing, and we love the fact. Propelio, Trey, we all love the fact he come in here. So please give him some love by liking the video, sharing the video, hearts, thumbs. And if you want to troll me, game on, girlfriend. I got my first. I never told you this.
I saw it.
You saw it on the Scott Horn video. Somebody was trolling.
Yeah.
Who's that guy on the far right? Tell him to shut up. I was on the far right. But anyway, Propelio.com, what we do, what we got going on, simply put, we've got leads, we've got comps, we've got websites. So if you need tools for your business, hit us up. We're in a lot of markets already. We're going to push hard into Phoenix right now. We've been in Phoenix for a while, but we've never really marketed it. We're going to change that. But we are actively looking to grow. So if you want us in your market, please hook us up with a broker. That's what Propelio is looking for. That's how you could help us out. But also like the videos, share the videos, watch them, comment, let us know who you are, engage with us. We love that.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for being here. And again, I appreciate this time that we get to spend together. If you're watching on the replay, please just timestamp on videos whenever something blows your mind so that we can start shifting our content to be something that you need to know. And if there's a topic that you're familiar or that you're unfamiliar with and you want to know more about it, please tag me on that and let me, ask me the question. I would love to, again, to shape this, because our drive here is to get you where you want to go and help you buy more houses. So we do this every Wednesday at 11 a.m. I love having you here. I love chatting with you. Thank you for being here. I look forward to talking to you guys next week. Take us out, Travion.
Bye, Trey.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.